Erased Destiny. Chapter 13. Good Neighborly Relations. The clatter of hooves on the road prompted Merigold to lean out the kitchen window where she was washing dishes. She left the wet plates on the table and ran to her room. She changed into a navy blue dress, took a bow, arrows, and a couple of skin bags. On the run, she summoned mounts, and as soon as they appeared, she left the village on one of them, without waiting for Topaz.
Where are you rushing off to like this? It's not in this direction.
Any direction is good, and the one to the forest is the best. There's less chance I'll run into someone related. My parents agreed to the trip, but they may become suspicious if they see us together. Don't ask.
For some time they rode side by side in silence, interrupted only by the hints given by Topaz. The hunter did not doubt that Merigold would track down and exterminate many more foxes than they needed, so he described in advance the suitable individuals as accurately as he could. Not too young, with nice, healthy-looking fur. Those that had begun to change to winter fur. Topaz kept to the road. Merigold directed the horses into the forest. She demonstrated that the company did not suit her and that she agreed to participate in the hunt only because of her dream fur. Another reason for choosing a sightseeing route was the girl's reluctance to return home. According to Topaz, the one-way trip was to take them 2 days, plus 2 days of hunting for a total of 6. Half enough. Watching Etienne's memories, Merigold didn't notice that she had strayed from the established trail. She woke up when her mount stopped in front of a stone slab and several columns.
This is a crypt. Looks neglected. You are being dragged to unfriendly places.
I'll take a peek inside. Many valuable items can be found in such places.
How far does your materialism go? No respect for the dead.
I know a little more about the dead than you, and believe me, on the other side, they have no use for trinkets. After such long time, they won't return here, maybe as skeletons, but this is not the return as is, and skeletons don't use items except for simple weapons.
Etienne dismounted from her horse and quietly sneaked into the partially collapsed entrance. Surprisingly, Topaz followed her.
I don't approve of what you're doing, but I don't want you to get hurt. And for Lena to wash my head off again. If she had seen you in action, she would have spoken differently.
I promise not to report you. Besides, the previous time you yourself admitted to leaving me in Sintra. I didn't say anything to Lena.
The girl jumped over a broken fragment of the column, and on her shoes slid down the stairs covered with a thick layer of leaves. She stopped at the wooden door, which, despite the impact and the licentious appearance, did not give way. Etienne summoned her black sword.
Are you not afraid of curses? Or the guards?
Curses are my domain. Undead also. Whichever way the hosts secured the graves, I can handle.
She cut a hole in the door and stepped confidently into the dusty catacombs. The combined smell of dust, decaying bodies, and rotting leaves made her vomit. No one attacked her. She didn't fall into any barriers or traps, and she felt worse than after a battle. Etienne covered her face with the folds of her cloak. She conjured light to look around the stuffy, dark room. The tomb turned out to be one small chamber, with coffins arranged in niches on either side. Opposite the entrance was a statue of death, the most typical of cemetery decorations. No treasures or sacrificial votive offerings, but there was something magical in the crypt. Etienne felt its aura, but couldn't find the item. She pushed the lid of one of the coffins. She saw a woman's skeleton, the remains of clothing, and extremely well-preserved shoes. Etienne took the shoes and, very happy with the result of plundering, returned to Topaz.
Are you going to wear them?
Topaz did not hide his disgust. He peeped at the girl's actions through the cutout opening, while looting valuables from under the monument he could possibly understand. Pulling the shoes of the deceased from her coffin filled him with revulsion.
Do you think she will come back for them? More than once, and more than twice, I have taken over items from the dead. My family, friends, enemies.
Taking a defeated person's equipment or inheritance is different from looting a tomb.
How are they different? You take the belongings of a person who is dead because they are more useful to you. Maybe you are not aware of it, but those shoes are worth more than house of my parents. I can wear them till the end of my life, and they won't wear out. And this is only the first of their advantages.
She threw the shoes into a leather sack and clipped the whole thing to her saddle. She rode away from under the crypt without looking at the man who was appalled by her words. Compared to what she had on her feet, the coffin shoes looked excellent. Therefore, immediately after cleaning and drying, Etienne intended to put on the loop. Toward evening, the hunters stopped in the ruins of an inn consumed by flames. None of them longed for the company of people. None of them felt like building a shelter, and it looked like a decent downpour was approaching them, so the presence of at least the burned beams was gratefully accepted. As Topaz laid out the bedding, cleaned the weapons, Etienne wondered if Topaz was really just Topaz. Didn't someone else live in him? The leader of the Seekers, for example. In character and approach to Etienne, Topaz resembled Nathan. With petty malice, pinching and spreading protection over the girl also. The longer Etienne looked at her companion, the more traits of the lost half-vampire she found in him.
You promised to tell the story. Why are you so fiercely helping everyone?
As it was the 9th of Loe, the night was chilly, and the rain hung in the air. So before Topaz answered, the first drops drummed on the blackened boards.
Once upon a time, hunters were respected by local communities, and many guys wanted to chase with a bow in the woods. So did I. There were 7 of us at home. Food was always in short supply, so as the oldest of the children I would roam the countryside looking for something to catch.
Did you live somewhere here?
Closer to the marshes where we were once, but yes. In the land of Sintra. Over time I became skilled and my actions did not go unnoticed. We were accused of poaching and threatened with expulsion from the village.
So how many of these animals did you hunt? A few hundred?
Merigold hadn't heard about the ban on hunting rodents, birds, or small furries. Topaz mentioned a couple of times that they couldn't kill more than 2 aurochs or 5 boars a month, but that much meat was more than enough even for a family of several.
The mayor at the time imposed a tax on each piece hunted. Because of this, meat was more expensive than usual and hunters were inspected especially closely. I tried to clean up after myself and cover my tracks, but eventually I was caught. My parents had a choice: run away from the village or put me in the service of the mayor.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Back then, young boys were sent to the mines, to the quarries, to logging. Dangerous, hard physical work. I was lucky, because my hunting talents were appreciated. I ended up in a camp where the mayor's private army was trained.
The rain turned into a violent cloudburst, and despite sitting next to each other, Merigold and Topaz hardly heard each other, so they just shouted good night and went to bed. The hunter's quiet breathing, even the position he assumed, reminded Etienne of Nathan. The girl wanted so much to find her former beloved that she forcefully made random men resemble him, and she was aware of it, but she couldn't stop looking at Topes. The noise of thunder awoke Merigold. She couldn't fall asleep, so while waiting for the storm to cease, she looked through Topaz's memories. She searched there for a trace of alien consciousness, a glimpse of someone else, but could find nothing of the sort. Topaz seemed to be himself, always himself and only himself. Disappointed by the failure, she got up to stretch her bones. Her stirring woke Topaz, who reflexively began to look out for danger.
I got a little cold. Look, it stopped raining.
You ran out of the house so quickly that you didn't take a sheepskin coat. Here, take mine. I have slept enough.
If that's the case, maybe you fancy a chilling ritual? Would you like to find out what she really did?
Topaz raised an eyebrow in anticipation of further speech. Merigold showed him a bracelet of a woman who could not be saved from the effects of the poison she had taken. A few wooden beads didn't represent much value, but to the deceased woman's husband, they could be of significance, so Topaz got angry again. Not only Merigold didn't respect the dead, she thought nothing about people's feelings.
No, but you clearly can't forget about it. Are you gnawed by remorse for not helping her?
Absolutely not. I did everything I could, shared my knowledge with you. If I had the ingredients, I would have prepared the antidote. I told you to teleport her, but you have ignored me. I have nothing to feel bad about.
Is the bracelet enough to summon the spirit of this woman? And out of curiosity, what color did your petal of magiflower dye?
Merigold muttered that it was a different color than she expected, which Topes interpreted as red. Despite checking the books in the library, Etienne didn't find an answer to blue magiflower petal. Usually, to talk to a deceased person, a mage needed a piece of their body, such as one buried in the ground and a special dagger. Alternatively, the ritual could be performed at the place of death. Although Etienne did not meet any of the conditions specified in the spell, she felt she would succeed.
Death, please bring back the spirit of the woman who wore this bracelet. She died a month ago.
The specter that answered the call made Topaz's heart beat much faster. Death. Merigold summoned death as if she did it every day. So ordinary. She simply called out,
"You are back, my mage. I will wait. I will wait for you on the other side. Maybe this time you will succeed. You have my blessing."
The swish evoked a feeling of longing in Etienne, similar to the one she felt when she thought of Nathan. The blessing of death. For what? After all, in her previous life, she had fought the spirit of her element to stop it. The appearance of the dead woman made far less of an impression on those gathered than the conversation that preceded it.
Why were you poisoned? Who did it?
Mrs. Gizmara, the wife of my employer Larato, gave me a poisoned soup. I think she overheard my conversation with Mr. Larato. He was the father of my child. He told me to take precautions, but I didn't do it.
You had a husband and a son, and yet you had sex with your married employer? So that you would have a child? A future possible heir?
Yes, the first time it was he who forced me. He was drunk and lost the race. He dragged me to the barn. I didn't want to do it, but with money he convinced me to submit. We had sex several more times. He paid me each time. When I got pregnant, I told him about it. He claimed that the child was not his and accused me of blackmailing him. He ordered me to leave the estate and gave some money, but I didn't listen to him. I tried to convince him to take me in with our child.
Etienne dismissed the ghost with a motion of her hand and looked at Topaz. The man seemed to be thinking about nothing, as if he was just waking up. The story they heard did nothing to dispel Merigold's doubts about Uriel and the way he exercised power. It only reassured her that extramarital sex leads to unpleasant complications, not just divorce. While Merigold was thinking about foxes, the hunt, eating breakfast, visiting Yume and plans for the winter, Etienne remembered her marriage to Nathan. He had betrayed her, had a son with another woman. She behaved similar to Larato, ordered Nathan to leave her palace. Nathan listened to her. What would she do if he had stayed? Could she force herself to kill her beloved? Rather not. Deliberations on relationships reminded Etienne that she hasn't found Nathan yet. He could be married already if he chose a boy few years older than Merigold. He could incarnate into an adult even. If only she hadn't promised him to be together this time. She sentenced herself to the eternal loneliness